Good morning. Welcome to Hatha Yoga with Carol. Hello to everyone. Not ever really sure who's out there, but welcome, whether you're new or a student that has practiced with me before, back in the olden days when we were all in the same room, which, stay tuned, may be happening sooner than we think, hopefully. So I'm sure some of you have seen the postings around on Saturday. Alchemy is going to host a solstice 108 sun salutations. So if you are in the area, I know I often have a student or two that isn't in Cochrane, but if you are in the area and you're free Saturday morning, it's a really, it is a really awesome practice. And it's one of those things that it doesn't matter if you do all 108, and I'll talk about that in our practice today. But it's that coming together and practicing something like that as a group, celebrating the longest day of the year. So if you are around and able, it's in Mitford Park. Please come and join us. I will be one of the teachers leading. And as usual, kind of my style is I will be offering a bunch of variations that people can either apply through the whole 108 because they're working around an injury or something. I'm still kind of babying a shoulder, or just to help conserve energy as if you're trying to complete all 108. So that's what we're going to do today as well, because I don't often teach the full sun salutation. So I am going to teach it today. When I do, I like to teach all the options that are available. So if you do go to a vinyasa class, if you don't go often, if it's something that it's new, or you're going and you've got an injury, just to give you those options of what you can do if you are skipping parts of that sequence. So let's come to our comfortable seat. Either sitting cross-legged, legs out in front of you, sitting up against a wall. I usually sit on the edge of a bolster. Closing down the eyes and slowing down the breath, slowing down the inhales, slowing down the exhales. Letting go of the morning, all the things that needed to happen for you to get into your space. So today's practice, I'm going to talk a lot about in one of the niyamas. So the yamas and the niyamas are, I always say they're sort of yoga's 10 commandments. And the niyama tapas. Tapas actually means heat, but I always think of it more of it's our inner fire or our inner determination. So if we attempt something like 108 sun salutations, we're probably going to have to dig into that inner determination, inner fire, maybe to carry on or complete something like that. But as we think about a challenge like that, and it can be any challenge, I do want to point out, and I suppose this is my opinion, but I feel like the intent, so the determination of the intent is as important as maybe completing. So certainly when we think about something like what's happening on Saturday, I think showing up with the intent to move through and stay in community for the 108 sun salutations, it becomes a little less important if I physically move through each one of them. So just a couple more breaths as we arrive on our mats, feeling the shoulders sink away from the ears, The hands are sinking heavy into the lap. Sit bones sinking heavy into the mat or the cushion. And then let's slowly open our eyes. We're going to start by warming up wrists and shoulders. If we are moving through the more traditional sun salutation, even the non-traditional one, that is two places where we might feel the most pressure. So making nice, reaching the arms forward, nice slow wrist circles. Changing direction. Pointing the fingers to the ceiling, taking the left hand, pulling the right fingers back as I'm really sort of pushing the palm of the hand forward, or the bottom part of the palm, stretching the forearm. Changing sides, pulling the left fingers back, pushing that just below the wrist forward. Then let's bring fingers to thumbs, bringing them to the tops of the shoulders, and we'll make circles with the elbows. So these might be big circles, they might be small, particularly if you've got going anything on in the shoulder. I'm lucky this movement doesn't really bother my shoulder. Changing direction. And then coming back to neutral. Let's switch up which way the legs are crossed if we are sitting cross-legged. Let's lean forward. We can bend the elbows just as far forward as is comfortable. Leaning to the right. Leaning back onto both sit bones, maybe arching the back, and to the left and forward. And bending the elbows, stretching the torso. However feels best. Maybe finding those sticky and tense spots from sleeping. Changing direction. Lots of us, and I feel like I fall in this category now. I do tend to feel sometimes a little more achy and stiff on damp mornings. Us southern, well, I'm not originally southern Albertan, but lived here long enough. I'm very used to that dry climate. Coming back to center. Now we're going to spend a little time on a pranayama, a breathing practice. Most of you are probably familiar with it or have heard about it, Ujjayi breath. So it's also known as victorious breath. It helps create like an inner warmth. Ujjayi and Kapalabhati probably creates the most warmth. But it's one that when I think of tapas, it's a breath that I think of that will help us get through maybe when we are trying to, extend our energy, maybe do a little more than we thought, than we might normally. And so for anyone who's not familiar with it, I will just break it down a little. And we'll just start by breathing with the mouth open. And when you exhale, imagine that you're fogging a mirror and kind of making that ha sound. So it's now when we close our mouth, kind of imagine that same, it's a slight constriction of the throat. It's also known as Darth Vader breath. It kind of has that sound. So I don't have the benefit of hearing anyone in the room, and I don't know how well you can hear me. But it's a I've also had it described to me as yawning with your mouth closed. So if that is a feeling that, or an imagery that makes more sense. So as we move through our sun salutations today, and we're not doing 108, it is something that, it is a breath that can help us with our stamina. It's a great breath for when you need to be calmed. I think I've told this story to regular students, but my husband's a private pilot. We've spent time bouncing over the mountains in turbulence, and I've done a lot of ujjayi breath in that little plane, let me tell you. So let's practice a few rounds just before we move on. You can close your eyes if that feels right. Slowing the breath, maybe even counting, moving to that equal breath. And then just releasing that pattern for now, but knowing that we can come to that at any time in this practice and any practice, though it does seem to be a little more linked with vinyasa practice, so the movement with breath. Let's come around onto our hands and knees. Going to finish just warming up a little before we move into our different variations of sun salutations. So as always, coming up on toes if that feels better for the ankles. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Let's inhale, lifting the chest, pointing the tailbone. I'm keeping my neck neutral, which I need to constantly remind myself, but you might lift your chin looking up. And then on the next exhale, we round our back. Chin might come to chest. I feel my tailbone pointing down. So moving back and forth with your own breath. Just warming up the spine. Maybe practicing that ujjayi breath. And then next time the back comes through neutral, pausing there. I might need to walk back a little. I'm going to reach the arms a little bit forward of the shoulders. And we're going to continue to warm up, moving through dancing cat. So on the inhale, I bring my shoulders over wrists. Exhale, begin to bring my hips to the mat. Doesn't need to come as deep the first time. Inhale, all fours. Exhale, hips back towards the heels. Maybe lifting the chest, lifting the gaze. This will be part of one of the variations. So if you do have something going on in wrists and shoulders, you don't need to bring the hips as close. Next inhale as we come back through all fours. Let's pause there. We'll tuck the toes. Hands. So we're going to set ourselves up for down dog. I like to have my hands a little further apart than my shoulders. I'm spreading my fingers nice and wide. And the middle of those two peace fingers are pointing forward. So just to show you, we're kind of externally rotating the forearms. So if we point those fingers forward, that kind of helps. Everyone's going to have a little bit different rotation. Again, the shoulder, among other things, is going to dictate how comfortable it is to. But we kind of talk about shining those elbow pits forward. So finding a comfortable spot for the forearms, toes tucked. Let's press into the hands, lifting the knees a couple inches, pushing hips back towards the heels, and then lifting the hips to the ceiling. If you're staying in down dog, alternating, bending the knees, pressing the heels towards the mat. But different versions of either. This is extended puppy, so the hips are staying lifted, arms stretched forward. It's also similar to melting heart, or coming right into child's pose. Those are both options for down dog. So maybe before we move on, taking a moment in stillness, keeping the knees bent, pointing that tailbone to the ceiling, bringing the ears between the elbows. And then deep bend in the knees. We can slowly walk the feet forward to forward fold. So belly is resting on thighs. Knees are deeply bent this first fold. Hands reaching down towards the mat. If ever the low back is bothering us, we can stay halfway. Let's sway a few times. Reaching for opposite elbows. Exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift, hands to shins, shoulders back. Just peeking over the edge of the mat. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So we'll just do a side bend in between. I'm just going to turn and face you. So let's find our mountain first. So lifting the heels and the toes a few times. Inhaling the shoulders up to the ears. Rolling them down and back. Palms forward. Itchy nose. And then on the inhale, let's bring the arms up overhead, interlocking the fingers, bringing out the 2 pointer fingers. Try not to let the shoulders come up to the ears. We'll inhale, lift up and out of the waist, and bend to the right, pushing the hips to the left. Inhale through center. Exhale, bending to the left, pushing the hips to the right. Inhale through center, bending over to the right. And this time, we're going to slowly, let's have our knees soft, slowly fold forward. So only bending as far forward as is comfortable for your back. Tracing those fingers down, over to the side, and bending over to the left. And then reaching the fingers down and over to the right. So just to demonstrate, you don't need to bend really far if this doesn't work for the shoulders or the back. You can trace the fingers at whatever level works for you. And then let's come back to center. Exhale, hands down by the sides. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water and we're going to work through, so sort of workshop the sun salutation, the more traditional one. And then we'll work through a couple of variations, options that you can use to kind of pick and choose what might work for you. And these are great when you are temporarily injured. Maybe you have something that's persistent, and so you always need to sort of work around it. So the thought process is that I shouldn't have to skip a vinyasa practice because I don't want to move through the full sun salutation. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, stepping back into plank. Now I always drop to knees, but we need to step back first. So I'm going to talk through this one a little more, so keep breathing. Because we want the knees to be behind the hips. So I know sometimes when people are coming to knees, they drop down into all fours, and then it's difficult to lower themselves down. So when we step back to plank initially, drop to the knees. Now, I want to think about shining those elbow pits forward. My elbows, that way my elbows aren't going to come out. It's kind of a reminder that I'm going to keep my elbows tucked into the side of my body, and I'm going to lower myself down, all the way down, if we're coming from knees. And then inhale, lifting the head and shoulders, keeping the shoulders away from the ears, into cobra. Exhale, lower. Let's do that a couple more times just to warm up the back. So maybe not pressing into the hands. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. This one we can press into the hands, and each time we come up we can decide how high we want to come up. This is where I'm going to press a little less because I'm protecting that right shoulder. And then on the inhale, I like to move through all fours, tuck the toes, lift up into down dog, or you can push right up into down dog. And then let's all drop our knees, untuck the toes for a moment. I don't move from full plank myself into up dog. I go from knees to cobra. And I'm not even going to demonstrate it, especially since I'm protecting a shoulder. But I will just, in case anyone's not sure, the difference between cobra and up dog is when I'm in up dog, I'm still up on my toes. So my hips are coming towards the mat, and I'm lifting up that way. So typically you're only going to come into that when you step back into plank, lower, staying on the toes, and then don't swoop into up dog. That's like a shoulder shredder. So moving from, I really don't want to do it with my shoulder, but moving from lowering into plank and then lifting the chest. Of course, I don't know who's in this class and what your strength level is, but I'm going to suggest, I don't even know the numbers, 60 or 70% of us probably should be coming to knees and lowering. There's a very small percentage probably that have the upper body strength to lower themselves properly. And this is another soapbox comment. It's not better. You might have more upper body strength or core strength to lower, but you are getting all the same benefits from coming to the knees. And as a matter of fact, you're probably protecting yourself a bit more than maybe forcing something that your body's not ready for. Okay, that's the only one I promise that I'm going to really yak through. So let's tuck the toes. Hands are in that little bit wider than shoulder position. Elbow pits forward, lifting the knees, hips back to the heels. Hips to the ceiling. And again, choosing whether you do want to be in down dog, you want to have the knees dropped and the arms forward. Always knowing that those alternates are available, particularly when we do a longer vinyasa class. It's often needed to conserve energy. And then one more alternate, instead of, if it doesn't work for you, a lot of us don't have the ability to really bring those feet forward easily is it's always an option to walk the hands back to the feet. We all end up in forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So we'll move through that version one more time. I'll let everyone choose which components that they want to move through. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Reaching down, stepping back into plank, either staying that way or dropping knees. Exhale, lower. Inhale, cobra or up dog. And exhale, tucking the toes, either moving through all fours or moving right into down dog or extended puppy or child's pose. Couple breaths. This is a resting posture, so make sure you choose the one that offers rest. And then look between the hands, step or walk to forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So we'll move through now one more alternate, and it kind of marries the top half of I do teach this one often, marries the top half of the sun salutation with that kind of dancing cat at the bottom. So this is a great one if, again, the chaturanga or down dog just isn't working for some part of typically your upper body, or in the case of Saturday where we might be performing many sun salutations, but even some vinyasa classes where there's 20 or 30. It's a way of conserving energy. You might be able to return to a different style after taking a little bit of a break in the middle. So we'll inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. We'll come down to all fours. Inhale, arching the back. Exhale, hips to heels. Reaching the arms forward. And then we'll inhale into cobra. Again, if you're really protecting shoulders, you won't bring those hips very far forward. And then exhale, down dog. Or extended puppy. Or child's pose. Choosing to continue to move. Highly recommend keeping a bend in the knees, pointing that tailbone to the ceiling. Ears in between elbows. And then here we have a choice. We can walk the hands back to the feet or walk the feet to the hands. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. And then instead of exhaling hands to prayer, let's exhale into chair. So dropping the tailbone down. I'm kind of reaching the sit bones back as I reach my arms forward. My arms can be more lifted or they can be coming off from the shoulders. The weight is in my heels. And this is a good place for that Ujjayi breath. On an exhale, let's sweep the arms back. So we're kind of like a ski jumper, weight still in the heels. You might even lift the toes. And then on the inhale, we'll straighten the legs, arms up. Exhale, sitting back, sweeping arms back. One more time. Let's hold here for a couple breaths. And then inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Now here's where you'll make a choice. Inhale, half lift. Alternate between the two. Exhale, stepping back into plank. But you choose. Exhale, lower. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, down dog. Choosing the resting pose that offers you rest. Choosing whether you walk feet to hands or hands to feet. Forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So let's step back with the right foot. Staying up on that right toe. Hands on hips. Bending into the front knee. If we're feeling a little unstable, we can always walk the left foot closer to the left edge of the mat. Initially having that back leg straight, but just playing with bending it, feeling the pelvis kind of go from tipping forward to straight up and down. So finding the little more straight up and down, maybe a little more stable. Inhale, arms up, shoulders away from the ears, crescent lunge. So I'm applying slight pressure into the feet as if I was trying to move them away from each other. Maybe finding that ujjayi breath. And then on the next exhale, slowly leaning forward as we sweep the arms back. Kind of a power lunge shape. And inhale. Arms up, torso up. And if this doesn't feel good for the back, staying in the lunge, or don't fold as far forward, probably straightening the back leg as you lean forward, reaching the arms back. One more, maybe the ujjayi helping with the stamina here. And then let's bring the right foot forward. Arms down at the sides. We'll move through a sun salutation. I'm going to move through the second variation. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, round in the back. Exhale, hips to heels. Inhale, cobra. And exhale, down dog or alternate. And then choosing whether it's hands to feet or feet to hands. Forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So we'll step back this time with the left foot. Staying up on the left toes. Choosing if that right foot will be a little closer to the right edge of the mat. Bending into the front knee. Slight bend in the back knee. Finding that a little more stable pelvis. Inhaling the arms overhead. Letting the shoulders relax. Pressing into the feet as if I was trying to move them apart. Big, deep ujjayi breaths. Next, exhale as we sweep the arms back, leaning forward, straightening that back leg. Inhale back up, slight bend in the back leg. One more time. Left foot forward, arms down at the sides, choosing which salutation you'll move through. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Stepping back into plank. Dropping the knees. Dropping the knees on the inhale, I guess. I'm throwing myself off. Exhale, lower. Inhale, cobra. And exhale, down dog. Maybe this time choosing one of the alternates, either hips all the way to the heels, or hips lifted, arms forward. If you are in the alternate, as we inhale, move to forward fold, you can walk the hands back to the knees, coming to forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up, rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So let's move into warrior two. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So we'll step the right foot back, having it more or less parallel to the short edge of the mat. Right foot heel lines up with about the middle of the back foot. Hands on hips to start. Let's bend into that front knee. Deciding maybe the stance might be wider or shorter today. Inhaling the arms to shoulder height. Quick look at that back arm. And then settling the gaze over the middle front finger. There's that down and out pressure with the feet. If we are protecting shoulders, it's a good reminder in any of these postures. My right shoulder protecting a little, so I might keep that hand on the waist, reaching the left arm forward. Maybe coming back to that Ujjayi breath. I'm sort of always making sure my knees tracking more towards the pinky side of the foot. Tends to want to collapse towards the big toe. Exhale, let's drop the back arm. We're lifting up and out of the waist and bending over to the right. Maybe scooping the arm. You can place the arm behind the head. You can even place the arm behind the waist, especially if that feels better for the shoulder. Reverse. Then we'll inhale through warrior two. Exhale, tipping to the left, resting that left forearm. The right hand can start on the hip. It's a nice way to open up the shoulder. We can reach the arm to the ceiling, or we can reach it forward towards the front foot. I'm keeping my neck neutral. I can even have my hand on the knee, especially if it helps open up the chest a little. Extended side angle. Inhale to warrior two. Exhale, reverse. So we'll move a little with breath. See how this feels with Ujjayi. We'll all meet in Warrior Two. Let's lower the arms, pivot the left foot forward, coming into a wide leg forward fold, so knees are soft. I like to have hands on the thighs so I can slowly fold forward, maybe resting hands above knees for a moment, and then point that tailbone to the ceiling, just like you do in cow pose or down dog. And then only if it feels okay for the back, continuing to fold forward. Hands can stay on the legs. They might make contact with the mat or the floor. I can have my knees deeply bent. I might let my chin come to chest, really letting my head hang. This is a recovery pose. Head is below the heart. If the hands are contacting, the elbows might bend. And then trying to keep the hips for the most part where they are. Walking the hands forward so the arms are stretched right out. Bringing them a little bit wider than shoulder distance. Transferring a little bit of the weight into the hands. This is a wide leg forward fold. And I like this for those of us that our feet are not flat on the mat in down dog. This offers that deeper stretch, or can offer that deeper stretch in the calves and hamstrings. And a little bit of a shoulder stretch too, depending on how far the arms are stretched forward. Inhale, walking the hands back in between the feet. Let's bring the hands to the sides of the legs, unless it's comfortable for you to have them out to the sides. Slight bend in the knees, really pressing into the outside edges of the feet to bring ourselves up to standing. We'll heel toe the feet together, move through your sun salutation of choice. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. I'm coming to all fours. Inhale, cat back. Exhale, hips to heels. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, child's pose, extended puppy or down dog. A few breaths in whatever shape you've chosen for your rest. And then making your way to a forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So we'll step back this time with the left foot into Warrior Two. Right foot forward. That right heel lines up with about the middle of the back foot. Checking your stance. Maybe it's a little wider today. Maybe it needs to be a little shorter. I'm kind of pressing into that outside edge of the back foot. Inhaling the arms to shoulder height. All good warriors look behind them, so having a look at that back arm. And again, maybe a little focus of trying to get the knee towards the pinky side of the foot. At the same time, there's that gentle pressure into the feet, as if I was trying to move them apart. Exhale, releasing the back arm to the back leg, lifting up and out of the waist, bending over to the left, choosing whether you want to have your arm kind of scooping back, maybe hand behind the head, maybe arm behind the waist. That's not a good feeling for my shoulder. And then inhaling the arms to shoulder height. Exhale tipping to the right, resting that right forearm. Left arm can be on the waist, reaching for the ceiling or reaching forward. You could even have the hand on the thigh. I find sometimes that helps us open up the chest. You might look up at that top elbow or the ceiling. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale, reverse. So we'll move a few times with breath. One positive of not being together is we're not worried about, sometimes it's nice to have that common breath, but we all are linked with common breath. But if your pace is different than another's, that it just doesn't matter. And we can't maybe hear that in these classes. So maybe we actually move with our own breath a little more often. Meeting back in warrior two. Let's lower the arms, pivot the right foot forward. Let's heel toe the feet together. Come to stand at the top of the mat and move through a sun salutation. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stepping back to plank, drop into knees. Exhale, lower. Inhale, cobra or up dog. And exhale, down dog. Or child's pose or puppy. And then looking between the hands if you're walking forward, or walking feet back to or hands back to feet, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, arms up. Rise up. Exhale, hands to prayer. So I'm going to take just another sip of water. I sometimes wonder if more humid makes me want more water. We don't usually have this humidity. I'll take it. So I'm going to come into a balance. So we're going to come into airplane or warrior three. So if you know that's a bit of a challenge for you and you do have a wall or some furniture near you, please feel free to, I'll probably demonstrate when we get to it. So maybe I'll turn this way. So we'll start by regrounding. So lifting the feet up and down a few times. Inhaling the shoulders to the ears, rolling them down and back, palms forward. Maybe closing the eyes just for a moment. Regrounding in mountain. Then we'll shift the weight into our left leg, bending up the right knee. The foot is flat, parallel to the floor. Palms forward still. So don't really need a gaze point necessarily here because we are going to move into warrior three. So just finding that moment of breath, reaching out for a wall if need to, or a piece of furniture. And then with control, I'm going to start to tip forward as I keep my knees still bent. I'm pushing that foot straight back. Coming into warrior three. So eventually extending the leg, arms out at the sides, folding as far forward as is comfortable, lifting the leg as high as is comfortable. Maybe this is my warrior three today. If I've got the wall, and I'm taking maybe some of the balance out of the equation, I might work to lift my leg a little higher. Your choice. 2 more breaths wherever you're at. Ooh, don't stop breathing. And then as we next inhale, slowly bringing the knee back up and right foot back down. Whew. So I was definitely over gripping with my left foot. So doing a few circles, a little shake. And we're not going to move through a sun salutation in between. We'll do that let's do a little lumbar twist. Just letting everything go, releasing all that tension where we were holding on. And then we'll reground, lifting the feet a few times. Shoulders up to the ears, down and back. One breath. Shifting the weight into the right leg, bending up that left knee. Taking a moment to just find some balance. And maybe today that means that you're going to, or every day, it might mean that you have that toe touching down. And then next, exhale as we fold forward, we're pushing that leg back. Straightening it out as we go. Bringing the chest as close towards the mat as is comfortable. You can have a slight bend in that front knee. You can reach the arms forward if that's your preferred warrior 3. I find I lose my balance when I talk too much. And just focus on the breath. Inhale, let's bend the knee, bring it back forward, and then left foot down. Whew. Let's give that right foot a shake, maybe shaking the whole leg. And we'll move through our final sun salutation. So I am going to cue the dancing cat one, but choosing your version. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. I'm going to inhale to cat back. Exhale, hips to heels. Inhale, hips forward. Cobra. And exhale, we'll all bring our knees wide, toes to touch. Maybe a final down dog if you'd like. But eventually we'll all meet in child's pose. Arms stretched forward. Maybe stacking hands to rest the forehead. Feel free to have the knees closer together if you need to stay up on toes. So choosing the shape that works for you. And at this point, you'll stay here for a few breaths. At this point, you can release that Ujjayi breath. Just letting the breath come softer, more silent, but maybe counting, seeing if you can return it to equal breath. And extending the exhales, particularly if you're at a point where maybe the breath is a little shorter. From that balance, can get the heart rate going, can get the breath a little shallow. So if we extend the exhale, it helps us to begin to extend the inhale. So when I think about tapas, determination, inner fire, and I think of it in relation to something like what we will be attempting on Saturday, I also think of the Yama Brahmacharya. So Brahmacharya it's got a lot of meanings, but I like the right use of energy. So I think there's some of us who will go into something like 108 sun salutations and think, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to nail it. I'm just going to go hard the whole time. And you might find that you're maybe going to make it through. You could be very, very fit and you're going to make it through, no problem. But you might hurt for a couple of days after. You might even hurt yourself, especially if you're only pushing through and not listening to your body. So your right use of energy might be to do a little less. There is going to be breaks between the sequences. You know, don't feel like that is not needed, because it is. And don't feel like every single sun salutation has to have the full chaturanga, the full down dog. And for those of us who are maybe, and I'm definitely in this category, a little more slow, and I might be more inclined to take the alternate. And certainly if you've got an injury, that's something that you always want to do. But I might be that I try to push a few more where I do move through other variations and see, but going back and forth is probably the right thing to do, to kind of see, I want to conserve. I've never done 108 sun salutations in a row. I don't know how I need to conserve my energy. It might be that you have to take some slower movement in the middle, and then you can kind of go hard to finish off. So we all have that kind of default. And so to me, the work is figuring out, do I need to work a little harder, or do I need to pull back and work a little less? And I think that can certainly, that philosophy can be used for a lot of things, not just for my example of Saturday. Just a couple more breaths in whatever shape you've chosen. Child's pose. And then let's come back up to all fours. We're going to tuck our toes. So we're coming into our toe stand. If you know that you just can't sit back on the heels because it doesn't feel right, you're going to keep your hands forward. Some of us are going to move our shoulders to be over the hips. And I started to manipulate my toes a little more. That pinky just doesn't want to get engaged. So I'm just engaging a little bit more of the toes. But if we're doing that, again, just be careful. There's a fine line between, not pain, but fine line between a sensation that is maybe deepening some mobility and a sensation that is the foot going, no, I don't want to move that way. So I think that's one thing that, let's bring the hands forward, untuck the toes. That's one thing, hopefully, that this yoga practice helps us figure out. Sitting back on the heels, only if that's okay for your knees. If you don't want to sit all the way back, just stay up on your knees for a moment. Some of us might be able to bring the hands back and lift the knees. I know this is really unavailable for some, so don't worry. And then bringing the knees back down, hands under shoulders. Let's push the hips to the right, looking over the left shoulder. Inhale through center, pushing the hips to the left, looking over the right. Next time you move over to the right, let's pause here for a couple of breaths, letting the hip feel like it's sinking closer to the mat. Inhale through center, over to the left. And then next time the hips come to the right, let's roll all the way over. I'm just going to turn to face you. Let's bring the soles of the feet together. Doesn't matter how close to the body they are. It could be quite a bit further away. It's very dependent on knees and hips. Sitting up tall. And maybe pressing the elbows into the sides of the legs. That might deepen the stretch. We're going to stay tall with the spine straight for a few breaths. And then you might be able to reach the feet. Everyone's going to be in a little bit different place. Chin can come to chest. We can round the back. Again, maybe the elbows still touch. Maybe you hold up a little further on the ankles so you can press into the legs. This is seated butterfly, so Baddha Konasana. Most of us are used to Supta Baddha Konasana, so the reclined version. Couple more breaths. Then we'll inhale, slowly sit back up, reaching the legs out in front of us. Let's bounce the knees up and down a few times. Hands just slightly behind the hips, lifting the chest, letting the head fall back. Just a little bit of a counter stretch. And then we'll come around to lay on our backs. Feet, knees bent, feet hip distance apart. We're going to come into rolling bridge. So we'll do one bridge pose just so we all know the alignment or the setup. So my heels are coming as close to my sit bones as I can get them. I don't care if my heels touch my fingers. Hands flat. I'm going to press into the feet, lifting the hips, maybe wiggling the shoulders a little bit underneath. I don't want my knees to splay open, so maybe imagining you're squeezing the block, maybe placing a block between the thighs. And on the inhale, lifting the hips. Exhale, just being mindful of the knees. We'll stay here just for a couple of breaths. And then exhale, lower. We'll stay here just for a breath. Then we're going to move into rolling bridge. So that's moving with breath. You can come back into Ujjayi if you'd like. So we want to make sure we kind of move into that form that we talked about, because we're not going to be there long. We might pause at full just for a moment. So inhale, lifting the hips. Maybe a slight pause. And exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Maybe each time imagining that you can get those hips a little higher. Exhale, lower. So moving with your own breath. And the next time the hips are lifted, let's hold. If you want to interlock your hands underneath, pulling the shoulders down, lifting the hips a little higher, feel free. We'll hold for a couple breaths. And then exhale, lowering the hips. Let's come into the reclined butterfly, bringing the soles of the feet together. Letting the knees fall open, tucking something behind the legs if you have it and you know you need that support. Hands can be at the sides, palms open, or left hand on heart, right hand on belly. Again, probably releasing that pattern of Ujjayi. Letting the breath become soft and quiet. Let's move the legs or the feet to the outside edges of the mat, letting the knees fall towards one another. And then let's windshield wiper the knees a few times, side to side. Bring the feet back to hip distance. We'll finish off before Shavasana with a twist. So lifting the feet off the mat, bottoms of the feet forward, arms out at the sides. Actually, bring the feet back down. Move the hips more to the left side of the mat. And let the knees drop to the right. So if you need to lift the shoulder to have them touch down, just bend the arm, resting the hand on the ribs. If you've got a block or a bolster to put under or in between the knees, feel free. Some of us might be able to place our right hand on the left thigh. About the middle will help deepen the stretch, but if that puts pressure on the low back, Doesn't mean that it's bigger, better. And then choosing where your neck is comfortable. I'm looking at the ceiling, but you can look towards the left hand and the right hand. Inhale, bringing the knees back to center, shifting the hips over to the right side of the mat, lifting the knees up, feet up, letting the knees fall to the left. Might be different on this side. The knees might be a lot further away or closer to the floor. You might need to put something in between them. Sometimes if you straighten the legs a bit, that allows a little bit more of the twist. And for some of us, this lower back or lumbar twist is just not available at all the way onto your side into fetal position. There's no benefit to twisting a low back if you're just further aggravating inflamed tissue. Inhale the knees back to center, bringing the hips back to the middle of the mat. We're ready to set up for our Shavasana. So choosing your shape. A little bit cooler today, you might choose to cover yourself in a blanket. Cover the eyes I think by now, hopefully everyone's prepared their little space at home to make themselves comfortable. Closing down the eyes. But as always, if closing the eyes isn't comfortable, just lowering the eyelids most of the way. Let's take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, allow your body to begin to relax. Raise your shoulders to your ears, and then relax, dropping them into a comfortable position, feeling them sink into the mat. Allow your jaw to drop slightly, letting the muscles of your face and jaw become loose and relaxed. Wiggle your toes once or twice. Feel your feet and legs relaxing. Gently open and close your hands once and again, and then relax your hands and arms. Take a deep breath in, feeling the tension in your chest and stomach as you hold. And then allow your chest and stomach to relax as the breath escapes slowly. Allow the muscles of your back to relax, from your neck to your upper back, middle back, lower back. Feeling your whole body relaxing. Do a little scan, noticing any areas of tension, and see if you can relax those now. Rest here. I'll bring you back in a moment. So before you move out of Shavasana, I'm going to share some affirmations that I think it's important for me to say while you're in this space. And of course, from here you can choose to stay in Shavasana. I will cue you out of it if that's your choice. So these affirmations are from a teacher in the States named Anna Guest Jelly, a yoga for all bodies, accessible yoga teacher. May I greet my body with gentleness. May I soften when life invites me to harden. May I listen to my intuition with wisdom and trust it with ease. And may I appreciate my body a little more in this moment, just as it is. May I greet my body with gentleness. May I soften when life invites me to harden. May I listen to my intuition with wisdom and trust it with ease. And may I appreciate my body a little more in this moment, just as it is. So if you're choosing to come out of Shavasana, maybe opening and closing the hands a few times, wiggling the feet and toes, taking a big breath in as you reach the arms up along the floor above the head. Exhale, bringing them back down to the sides. Inhale, bringing the knees into the chest, rolling a few times from side to side. Landing eventually on the right or left side. Taking a breath or two in fetal position. And when you're ready, pushing yourself back up to seated. Closing your eyes when you get there. Thank you very much for choosing to share your practice with me this morning. Namaste.